Hello, this is Courtney Murdoch from Love Lives On, and today I am speaking with Ligia Houben, a certified grief counselor, life transitions coach, and a fellow of the American Academy of Grief Counseling, and she specializes in helping people through life transitions and dealing with loss. So welcome, Ligia, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Courtney. It is a pleasure to be with you.
So the first question I have for you is, a lot of times when we experience loss, our gut reaction can be to go into kind of a state of denial and push our emotions and our feelings aside. Do you think that grief is something that can be delayed?
Actually, it can be delayed because the thing is that when we experience a loss, grief is the natural, and I like to say unique response to a loss. So there it's where uniqueness may come, because at times when the pain is so hard, Courtney, we get into this coping mechanism, like defense mechanism, and denial may play a role at the beginning, no? And then grief can be delayed. And other times also can be delayed when we need to take care of other things. For example, let's say sadly, that there has been, we lost a child because it was murdered, like a homicide. And the person, the bereaved parent, have to deal with the court system, going to trial. So grief in that case also can be delayed. So there are different circumstances that it is like kind of a push to be delayed, and other times when it's our own reaction that makes us delay it.
Right. And why is it so important for us to, at some point, whether we delay the grief or not, to consciously acknowledge and recognize that grief?
It is important when we talk about acknowledging. For example, when I talk about the principles, it's a system that I created, 11 principles of transformation. Like the first one has to do with acceptance. And remember when at the beginning I told you that grief is the natural and unique response to a loss. So the first thing would be to accept the loss in a sense of not that, okay, you're fine, it happened. No, it's acknowledging the loss, accepting that it happened. Then, second principle is live your grief. Because once you accept there was a loss, you're not in denial, then grief is what happens after. If we do not process grief, what happens is that it stays there. It may stay repressed. People sometimes somatize grief. They show it with their body. Because what I say, Courtney, is what we ignore does not cease to exist. It is only repressed. Mm-hmm. Then something may trigger that grief, and it comes even stronger.
Right. And you speak about grief being experienced in many different ways and not just at the emotional level. Can you tell us what you mean by this?
Yes, because when we talk about someone grieving, what most people would think is, the emotional aspect, like a person crying, sad, depressed. However, because as people, we have different dimensions. And I like to work with people in a holistic manner, in an integrated manner. So we have different dimensions. And besides emotional, we have physical dimension, social, spiritual, and the emotional. So some people may not be crying. A griever, a griever may not be crying. However, may develop a very severe back pain, or may have this sense that they're having a heart attack. And people even go to ER, we know that, with grief, with stress, when in reality it's a way of expressing what they are feeling inside. Right. Other things, like the social, people may withdraw, not wanting to see people, others, no? Or, on the contrary, maybe they lost a loved one and they do not want to stay at home alone. Right. So they go out all the time. So that would be social. So we see different as aspects, no? And of course, the spiritual, which is very close to my heart, is that people may lose faith if if they believe in God or a higher being. They may lose faith. They may lose faith in themselves, or on the contrary, they may become more religious. So again, because the uniqueness, no, we can go one way or another, but it is expressed in different matters.
Right.
Yeah.
And what advice do you have for people who are grieving during the holidays? So Christmas, Mother's Day, Father's Day, days that can be especially difficult if you're missing someone special.
And they can be. I always tell my clients, when I work one-on-one or when I do the workshops, the seminars, that to be prepared, to help our clients be prepared, because grief is not linear, Courtney. There are some days that you are, it's like I compare it as a roller coaster, because some days you are up and people tell you I'm feeling better, and all that, and then suddenly they tell you, I went back. They go down. It's not going back. It is a process.
Yeah.
Maybe the person heard a song on the radio. Maybe the holidays are coming. A special date, as you mentioned, Mother's Day. So it is important to help them understand that there will be changes based on the circumstances, on the dates, that they can prepare themselves to be ready for that, to acknowledge their feelings. For the holidays, they can create new rituals to let their loved ones know how they feel, because the bereaved has rights.
Yeah.
So to share with them how they feel, maybe they want to do it differently this year, than the previous years. Maybe, let's say, they lost a loved one. Maybe they want to cook a special recipe,
right. Yeah.
honoring the loved one. So we can bring creative things. For example, for Thanksgiving, something that I suggest to clients is that they are grateful because they had a loved one. And we're talking right now loss regarding to death.
Yes.
No?
Yes.
However, we know that there are other types of losses. But we're talking about death now. So I tell them, okay, you can have a beautiful box. Create a box at the entrance of your house. This will be a ritual to do for Thanksgiving. Then ask each person to write something that made them feel grateful for having had that special person in their lives. And they do that, and they like it. Because then, after dinner, they sit around, in a circle, and they share what they wrote. And it brings a moment of sharing, of joy, even, pain in their hearts, but that satisfaction, that love that person touched each of those lives.
Right. Well, you speak a lot about gratitude and feeling gratitude, peace, and love in our lives. So do you think it's possible to get to a place of that gratitude while you're grieving?
It is. I tell you, and I thought about that and it touched my heart because, of course, I have gone through many losses. No, actually the reason why I entered this world of helping others through losses is because I lost my father very early in life when I was 12, and I have had many other losses. My last one, actually, 2 years ago, I was hit by a car crossing the street. Yes, and it was very serious. They had to reconstruct my leg. I lost consciousness. My head opens. It was very strong. However, and I tell you with my heart, what helped me heal from my heart out was to be grateful. I didn't have that, oh, look at what happened. I cannot walk. I cannot, a lot of, dizziness and all that. However, I'm so grateful I'm alive. I have my other leg. They could save my leg. So I focused a lot on people, that were with me, giving me love and support. So we can always choose to be grateful for tiny things. Right. Sometimes it's just a tiny thing to be grateful for. And that doesn't mean that we are not validating what happened to us. Of course it is important, as we said, not to ignore it, but just to turn a little bit our head and see the other things that we still have.
Right.
Yeah.
That was very well put.
Yeah.
As a society, we really struggle to openly talk about death and dying and grief and loss for whatever reason. How do you think encouraging these kinds of conversations will help us at an individual level as well as a societal level?
Beautiful question. Thank you so much for that. Yes, because it is. When I teach, because I also teach, the university, death and dying, and when we talk about that, we live in a death denial society and a loss denial society because we are supposed, and who told us that when we were born?
Yeah.
Who told us that? But we are not trained, quote unquote, or being educated, either in elementary, middle school, high school, college, about death, about losses. Everything is winning, winning. The thing is that we go through that. And if we bring that possibility to our awareness, it helps us to be prepared when that happens. I will never forget this. Once I was doing the workshop on the 11 principles that I told you about of transformation. A mother came and no, she called me and she said, Ligia, can I bring my two daughters? One was 17 and the other one was 15. And I said, for sure, bring them over. So she came and she said, Ligia, the reason why I am bringing my daughters is because I lost my father, she said, when I was 18. I didn't know what to do with it. The pain was overwhelming. Nobody had taught me how to deal with these things. So my daughters, she said, until now, they have never faced a challenging life transition, no? However, I want them to be prepared. And that was beautiful because that mother was proactive.
Yeah.
Because what happens, losses happen to all of us, Courtney.
Yeah.
Even if we want it or not, that happens. It's part of life.
Yeah.
And many times, and we see it, people, of course, adolescents, children, adolescents, adults, even older adults, they develop coping skills which are not the most beneficial to deal with their loss. Because there has been a change and they need to respond to that. And sometimes they do not respond, they react. So with bringing the conversation about that, yes, death happens, we will lose loved ones, we are going to die, brings us more awareness and also more insight in realizing that we will not have our loved ones forever. So to appreciate the time we have with them, instead of being fighting all the time or many times, to be loving and forgiving and compassionate and to understand that our lives have an end so we can live with more meaning and more purpose.
That was really well put.
Yeah.
And finally, what's your best advice for viewers who are trying to find a new normal after the loss of a loved one?
A new normal.
Yeah.
Yes, that can be a greatest challenge. However, what I say is this, and I said in the book, in Transform Your Loss, I say, when we experience the loss of a loved one, and I talk based on personal experience and professional, not professional training, studies and all that, not degrees, but based on personal also, we learn how to live with the loss of our loved one. It's not that we forget, because many times people ask me, when I am going to forget? Love is eternal. So we learn how to live. And when we can find meaning in that loss, when we can find that meaning and we can find ways to honor the life of our loved one, then that new normal is, quote unquote, is when we integrate that loss as part of our life story and we even can grow out of that experience. Then that new normal becomes that, you become even a better person, a person with maybe more spiritual development or grow because of that experience.
Well, thank you so much, Ligia, for joining me today. I know that our viewers are going to benefit so much from your expertise and insights on this subject. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Courtney, it has been beautiful spending time with you and your viewers. You have a beautiful day now.
Thank you. You too. This is Courtney from Love Lives On. Thank you for watching. If you like what you see, please subscribe to our YouTube channel for more ways that we can celebrate our loved ones' lives now and forever.